you know, if for those of you who've traveled to Ethiopia, you know, they use that as a tool, a political tool. So it's always, you know, something that is, you know, used by the government. But I'm sure he will come back. Dr. Temfak, Dr. Tangem, are you with us? If you're with us, please kindly introduce yourself. And Dr. Mambo, just to tell everybody that the
Yes,
session has been recorded. All right, Dr. Tangem, over to you. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Fon. Elvis Paul Tangem. I work with the Africa Union Commission as a program coordinator for one of the flagship programs in the area of climate change, sustainable land management and restoration, called the Great Green Wall for the Sahara and Sahel. And I'm based at the headquarters of the commission in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I want to apologize to our feminists in the audience that it's not that we don't value women on this kind of topic. It's just that when we ask for volunteers, we didn't have any women showing up. But we can assure you that in the next session, in our next webinar, you'll probably have some very, very intelligent women on the panel and also a woman moderator. So without much ado, I would like to give the panel, the session to Dr. Temfak. Can you please get the ball rolling? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Benashus, for giving me the floor. It's my pleasure to share with you my own point of view about mindset change. And I find it a little bit difficult to talk about mindset change with in a very short time like this, because I can talk the whole day. So we are going to do some sort of like a roadmap to how somebody can change his or her mindset. I'm going to be talking mostly about the individual mindset, because I guess my other panelists will talk about community type of mindset, something like that. So in this case, I'm addressing mindset with respect to a person who wishes to change the way they see life and the way they think. And I would be focusing a little bit more on this very, very interesting organ in the body that we call the brain. And I know many people in the secondary school didn't like the part of biology that I used to talk about the brain because they find it very complex. But personally, I find it very, very fascinating. And the fact that we don't like to talk about the brain, we are always very fascinated by some of the things that man made, which are just a magnification of some of the functions of the brain. I'm sure we get very amazed when we look through a telescope to see the moon, but the telescope is just a magnification of vision. When we use touch screens and the way they respond very fast, we are really like, wow, but this is just one of the functions of the brain, like to react to touch. Then when we use cell phones and transmitters, receivers, we are happy, but we don't know that this is a magnification of communication and the perception of communicated waves. Just like when we look at the servers, the gigantic servers where we store all our Facebook and Google photos, we are like, wow, this is fascinating. But I would assure you that no man-made artificial memory can even compare with the memory that the brain has. So I would also talk about how the brain stores information. I'm sure we are all familiar with this picture because of the fact that we have been kids and that now we have kids. The first stages of learning, we show images to kids. And irrespective of the language that we speak, the images are always the same. And so the child records this image and stores in the brain. And then the associated sound that we make when we show them these images that we call the names of the things that we show them, it varies by language, but the image doesn't change. Then still in this learning process, when we get to another context, like you see these kids together looking at an image, and then everybody, just imagine that they all speak different languages, then everybody will be calling what they're seeing on the image by a particular name. And then another person will make fun of the name that that the other person uses, and they feel a little bit awkward because of its reaction towards the name that they use.
No, just go, and there you go.
the most important thing here is the fact that we should
It will
remember
fall.
that the brain
So just
stores information as images. We will understand this better along the line when we're talking about this roadmap. And even though the brain looks very, very complex, I would just like to simplify it and call it the triune brain, because the brain has undergone a lot of evolution. Human brain has undergone a lot of evolution, and it has three main functional parts that work as one. Thus the name triune. So three in one. So we have the first part of the brain that evolved, like it was the first part to appear, and it's called the reptilian brain. And this has to do with managing our survival. And part of survival means we have to make sure that our species continues to exist. So reproduction is part of survival. This one is an instinct. That is why a child would never determine when puberty will start. It's instinctive. It just starts like that because it's automatic. Then we get second part to appear in the brain is the part that we call the mammalian brain. That is what makes the difference between us and maybe lizards. This is what we call the mammalian brain, because it permits us to have emotions and feelings. And we know very well that we tend to remember things by the way they make us feel. Then the last part of the very interesting thing is that each part of the brain that appears in evolution dominates the previous one, but does not take away all its functions. So the last one to appear is the most recent, which is the neocortex, and that is the one everybody talks about, the analytic brain. The analytic brain is the one that that makes a difference between man and primates like chimpanzee. So this one we can process information and then feedback. So if we look at it from a functional point of view, we will see that the two parts of the brain that originated earlier, they are more or less automatic, and we use things like instincts. So I'll give you an example. I just mentioned earlier that we don't decide when to go on puberty. Then when we get to puberty and we need to reproduce, we start having feelings for the opposite sex. And then we don't just rely on those feelings, but we use our analytical brain to choose the person that we want. So you see that the analytic brain dominates on the functions of the previous. But now, when we look at the analytic brain, it's the part of the brain that we call the conscious part of the brain. If you look at the way they function, the conscious part is the master planner, then the subconscious one is the executor. I think we need to keep this image in mind because it's very important in this roadmap to mindset change. Just to give you an example of how these different parts of the brain function, and I remember I said we store information as images. I'll give two illustrations. Imagine that you're walking somewhere in the park, then you see these lions coming. Within a split of a second, you tell yourself, these are hungry lions, they feed on flesh, there is an imminent attack. Then you imagine what they could do to you by the way they treat other animals, and then you develop that emotion of fear. And then when these come together, one thing just comes in your head: leave this place. And your body automatically puts in place all what you need in order to leave that place. Your heart pumps very fast, you breathe very fast, and then your legs would permit you to run faster than Usain Bolt. Another scenario is when you go into a farm and you see chicken on the right, you say, oh my God, healthy, well-catered chicken. They could be grilled, roasted, or fried. And then immediately you imagine the last time you had some really nice grilled chicken. And the next thing is that your body will automatically react and you say, oh my God, I feel as if I'm starving. You start salivating, your stomach starts to rumble, and then you check on Google Maps to see the closest restaurant or the closest KFC. In these two scenarios, we see that the first scenario, the objective was to run away. The second scenario, the objective was to get something that I like. So it means that the brain functions in a way that it's a goal-seeking or a solution-finding organ. But wait a minute. Nobody has ever survived the attack of a lion to be able to explain to others how it feels to be beaten by a lion. So it means that we had the image of the lion as a hungry animal that feeds on flesh. Then we imagined what this lion could do to us, and this triggered in us some reactions that we couldn't control. On the other hand, the reaction of, oh my God, I'm starving, is because of the experience that we ate chicken before and it was really good. So what I want us to retain here is that the brain as a goal-seeking or solution-oriented organ does not make a difference between real and imagined experience. So which means that imagination, so for imagination to be cool, I could borrow the C in cool and add it somewhere where it will become image in action. Very important. Which means that here I would like to introduce the notion of self-image. You remember we talked about the image of a lion. Remember, maybe we saw the lion when we were in nursery school in a book, never had the opportunity to meet a lion before, but we were told and we imagined what the lion could be, how fierce it could be. But the question is, how do we think about the image that we have for ourselves? So we introduced the notion of the self-image, and I will make reference to this very nice book that I read when I was 22, and till today I read this book because it changed my life. And so the notion of the self-image is the conception of the person that I am. And the building blocks of the person that I am are based on our beliefs of ourselves. And these beliefs are based on past experiences, on successes and failures, humiliations, triumph. For example, if while in primary school, your teacher said, you don't know maths, and then you believed your teacher, you would be blocked such that you will not be able to learn maths. And then another factor is the way other people have reacted to us, especially during childhood. I'll come back to the situation where a parent will tell the child, you are a good for nothing. He keeps repeating that to the child, and at one point, the child incorporates this external information to believe themselves as a good for nothing. And this picture of self is the key determinant to a mindset change. And the image of self will determine our actions, our behaviors, our feelings, even our abilities, and the way we would act would go in consistency with this image that we carry about ourselves. So there are two types of images. The positive self-image is a success-prone personality. A negative self-image is a failure-prone personality. And I really like the way Maxwell Maltz in his book, he coined it, because when you have a positive self-image of yourself, success is you are prone to a success type personality, and the way you would behave are also found in the word success. You have a sense of direction, you can understand very easily, you're courageous, you're compassionate, you have a good self-esteem, you are so self-confident that some people might find you arrogant, and then you accept yourself for who you are, your mistakes, your failures, your fears. However, when you have a negative self-image, it's also built in the word failure, and we see this type of person is prone to frustration, aggressiveness, most of the time, which is misdirected. This person has a sense of insecurity, some loneliness, which is built on the fact of lack of oneness. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's resentment and emptiness. But the nice thing is that self-image can be changed. So how can we change the self-image? I would like us to go back to the image, to the situation of the lion. We imagined what the lion could do to us. Our body automatically reacted, and we ran at a speed that we could not even imagine that we could run, right? Now, when you change your self-image, you can use imagination as a tool, because you never have the opportunity of living all the experiences in order to be able to differentiate which is good and which is bad. But you can think about yourself and create a mental image of the type of person you are. You dehypnotize yourself of the false beliefs. For example, if your teacher in grade 1 told you that you're not good at maths, and then you tell yourself that was his or her opinion, I am a good maths student, you convince yourself, you believe you can do it, you create a mental image of the person that you want to be. And when you create this image, you have to practice acting in your head the successful person that you want to be. Where do I want to be in 5 years? You imagine yourself. You rehearse this image. You play the movie. You listen to the details. For example, you imagine yourself being somebody working in an office. You imagine yourself on a computer doing some really complex Excel manipulations, and then you can even listen to the keyboard. You see yourself with a stack of papers. You play that image on your head, in your head. However, this image should be realistic and feasible. It should not be fictitious. You should not imagine yourself as an all-powerful. You should not imagine yourself as arrogant or egoistic or the all-important person, because having this type of self-image is even worse than having a negative image of oneself. So, as I said earlier, the self-image can make you do things that you never imagined you can do. Let us use an example. You know, I started this talk by showing some examples of the machines which are made as a magnification of some of the functions of the brain, which really fascinates us. I'm not saying that the human being is a machine, but the human brain functions like a machine which is controlled by the person who has that brain. Let us look at this example. We have an auto-guided missile. Auto-guided means that it can correct course. It has a corrective mechanism to correct its course. Then we have a target, which is a ship in the sea. If we need to hit the target, all what we need is a propeller to propel the missile, and then the next thing is the GPS coordinates of the target locked to this missile. Once the missile is launched, it goes on its trajectory. When the trajectory is a little bit off path, the negative mechanism systems, the auto-guided system, would realize that it has missed, it is going off course, will correct the missile to go back to course. And then when it is on course, the feedback mechanism will say it's on course and it will propel it in that direction. It's the same way somebody who has a negative image of themselves, who want to become successful, you would see that the first example, the target is known. This second example, this guy wants to become successful. He doesn't know what it means to become successful. He just imagines himself a businessman who is growing day after day. Then he chooses a particular trade. Then the next thing is that his trajectory is based on an imaginative target that he doesn't know. He changes his self-image, then he takes action. Taking action means that you want to get to your objective. You don't spend time and energy thinking about what could go wrong. You think about the objective and you move towards it. And your negative feedback in this case is the numerous try and errors that you would do. And when you fail, it's not a reason to stop, because the missile, when it missed its trajectory, it could correct it and come back to course. So failure in this case is the first attempt in learning. When you fail and then you realize you fall, you get up, you continue. The time you start having, so the positive feedback in this case would be when you start succeeding, and then this success now serves as a feedback mechanism to make you to continue. I guess we all have had the experience where you sit down and then you're feeling a little bit down, and then to make yourself feel better, you just imagine one day that maybe you did something really good in the office, and maybe in the coordination meeting, everybody just stood up and they did a standing ovation and said, wow, you did it. You just imagine and reproduce that feeling. It pushes you to work further and to move on. So when we use our imagination to create a target that we want to move towards this target, it's what we call creative accomplishment. If you look into the dictionary, the word success, the way it's coined in our community, is the type of guy who comes and they say he's the boss. He has the biggest house. He drives the biggest car. But to be successful means that you create that, so you accomplish that, so you do a creative accomplishment. It means you imagine a target, you work towards it, and then you get there, and then you feel good. So which means that success is not a destination, it is a path. And mind you, self-image change is not something that happens in one day. It's a continuous process. And when you are building this image of the person that you want to be, it's not something you imagine today and you forget about it tomorrow. It's a daily exercise. When you train your brain to see yourself where you want to be, your subconscious mind, so this training is you're fitting this image into your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind drives you to this objective. because man is an objective-seeking and problem-solving mechanism. So to summarize, to summarize this, when you try to change your self-image, you learn to know who you are. And when you know who you are, you know what you love. You know what you're good at. You know what you can be paid for. And you know what the world needs. There's this very interesting book called Ikigai, which coins this, which is like the Japanese path to happiness. And if you look at this Venn diagram here, when you know what you're good at and you do what you love, that's what we call passion. When you know what you love and you blend that with what the world needs, it's a mission. When you know what you're good at and what you can be paid for, it's a profession. And when you know what you can be paid for and it is something that the world needs, it's a vocation. So when you are working on your self-image, these are some of the key things that permit you to develop yourself as an individual such that you can fit into this Ikigai Venn diagram. So to summarize, I would say that man is designed to be a solution seeker. The brain does not make a difference between imagined and real experience. Mindset change starts with a change in self-image. Constructive imagination is key to self-image. Thus, positive mind change, and the subconscious mind is an automatic executor of the image created by the rational mind. Thank you very much, guys, for your attention. I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Temfak. I think this was fantastic. You know, Dr. Temfak has a medical background, so he had to, you know, through the medical, you know, terminologies of how the brain functions, how the brain analyzes information, how, you know, the subconscious function from the medical perspective. So he has a medical background and a PhD also. You know, it was very interesting to understand, you know, the perspectives from which it's coming from. And the key words I would summarize are success. You know, he dissected what success is all about, you know, and in conclusion, he said success is not a destination, it is a path. We need to dehypnotize ourselves. You know, there is a lot of negative energy around us, you know, from the things we've been digesting, from the things we've been seeing, from the things we've been receiving, from the kind of friends we've been hanging out with. We need to try to dehypnotize that so that we can become positive persons. Yes, I will now pass it over to Dr. Munang. Dr. Munang will now take it now to another, you know, perspective where he will be telling us about the key tools we can use to really have the mindset of the successful person that we saw in Dr. Temfak's presentation. Over to you, Dr. Munang.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Fon, and thanks a lot, Dr. Temfak, for that amazing presentation, which I will build from that, which is going to take a little different approach from the fact that as I'm building on that, I have to start with this African proverb, which tells us that a truthful man will soon find himself expelled from 9 villages. Why am I saying so? Hard truths are supposed to be told, especially on a very crucial aspect called mindset. Because over the years, what I have increasingly appreciated, especially with the words of this proverb, is that sometimes we choose to speak what is convenient rather than speaking the truth. We choose convenience over truth. And this is a critical issue in confronting the realities we face in the continent, to choose truth, not half-truths. And the wholehearted adherence to what we must be able to do is to consider the fact that critical steps to solving the multiplicity of challenges in our communities and in our country and the entire African continent have to start with each and every one of us in our individual capacities. So we must be ready to speak the truth, even if it means being expelled from the 9 villages, as the proverb says, for the sake of making sure that we can be able to move forward. Because let me just start by giving this simple story. A story is told of an African, about 3 of them, who graduated with PhDs in an overseas university. After the conferment ceremony, as they were discussing, taking photos, excited, and congratulating each other, an undergraduate who had also graduated in the same ceremony, and a native of that country walked up to them and told them this: you can graduate with PhDs all you want, but you will continue depending on us with our bachelor's degrees. Well, some of us may say this sounds disrespectful. Yes, it is a disrespectful statement because we like sometimes to focus on what can make headlines. But the truth is this: this is very reflective of what we see around our continent.
Oh, we lost him.
Dr. Munang, are you there? Hello? We've lost him? Have we lost him? All right. Let him try to fix his, while waiting for him to fix his internet. There was a question from Dr. Frundenge for you, Dr. Temfak. I know we're supposed to take questions at the end, but let me just read the question from him. Can you yourself change your self-image, or do you need an expert who is not accepted in our society? That's for you, Dr. Temfak. Why we wait for Dr. Munang to come back?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. One of the reasons
Dr. Munang, are you back?
Yes,
okay.
The lights just went off and then the internet got disrupted.
Okay, so you can continue. Dr. Temfak will answer the question after. Dr. Richard, over to you.
Thank you very much. I think before the internet disconnected, what I was talking about was telling a story of Africans who graduated from very top universities in this overseas university, and after the conferment ceremony, as they were taking photos, what happened was that one of them, being an undergraduate who had also graduated in the same university, asked this question. He told them, you can graduate with PhDs all you want, but you will continue depending on us with our bachelors. It was a disrespectful statement, but very reflective of what we see around Africa. The fact is, let's be realistic. Most Africans, some of us graduate top of our classes across the entire world, but sometimes what happens is when we return back to the continent, that excellence seems to fade away. And the question is, why is this so? And the answer is simple. The answer is no different from what we see even with our youth across the continent who graduate with different qualifications and cards from our institutions. And it is summed up in one word: entitlement. Most of us believe that once we finish school, we are entitled to a job, to start getting money and making financial decisions that will enable us to start taking steps towards meeting our needs. That's fine. But well, education is beyond that. Education at whatever level, whether it is formal or informal or any certification that one gets, is in real sense a responsibility bestowed on each and every one of us to go forth and create solutions for humanity, to turn the myriad of challenges we face every day into productive solutions that touches many lives. Because the reality is that every challenge, every adversity carries with it a seed of equal or greater benefit. The challenges we face, regardless, are disguised opportunities for greatness. So this means that every challenge you see, interpret it in your mind as an opportunity. And it builds in very well with what Dr. Temfak presented. Any challenge you see is a disguised opportunity. So you have to create that image, that imagination, as Dr. Temfak explained, as seeing as a disguised opportunity. And it is only in solving these challenges that we can tap opportunities. So it means solving these challenges lies an opportunity to sharpen us and bring the best out of our talents and abilities and skill. But when challenges come, we'll say, oh, no, this thing is too much. I am not blessed. Challenges, we cannot afford to wait for elusive perfection or say, I don't get money, I'm not going to do one. No, those stories we hear all the time doesn't add any value. We cannot wait to have what we think we need before acting. Rather, we must start immediately with what we already have. And it is in doing so that more doors open for us to perfect these solutions and create more opportunities for ourselves. Because let me just contextualize this by painting a real and realistic picture of what we all know and see in our communities. Across the entire African continent, regardless of which country, the challenges are pretty much the same. The majority of the people are engaged in the informal sector. And if you were to take, for example, Cameroon, up to 90% of Cameroonians are engaged in the informal sector. Agriculture employs a majority of them, up to 53% of the informal workforce is in this area. While remaining 37% are engaged in other informal areas, be it in hospitality, in construction, or in retail, those running shop, kiosks in our neighborhoods, those engaged in fashion, apparel, and the list goes on. So it means only between 4 to 6% of the population is engaged in the formal sector. That means those in the white-collar jobs, employed in government, corporations, etc. And this leads to the first aspect that we must consider. It means to solve challenges that 90% of people who are in the informal sector, the area to prioritize our solution actions to achieve impact at scale is the informal sector. Means that, and we will talk and nothing will ever change. The picture, however, does not only end there. Consider just for a moment the predicament of a youth in rural Africa and rural Cameroon, in a village, in the eastern part of the country, in the northwestern part of the country, in the southwest, it doesn't matter. Just consider just for a moment a youth in rural Cameroon, or any part of the country or any part of the continent. A school dropout with no noticeable skill, coming from a deprived home, from a poor home, and having to find his or her own way to survive. These are realities. Most of us pass through that, and this is happening across the continent each and every day. So the question is, where do they start in tapping the challenges as opportunities? This is realistic. But the key here is this. They cannot look at material which they do not have. They cannot look at material which they do not have, but rather they must look inwardly at what they have in them. And what they should specifically look for is the ability for selflessness, which we all have, each and every one of us have. We can be nice, we can be kind, we can be selfless, but we refuse to. We have that imagination, as Dr. Temfat said, of never even believing in ourselves until other people have validated us whether we are valid or not. The ability also that he or she have to look to is the ability to swallow this empty pride that we have in us. For example, how many of us would walk up to a farmer in a village and ask if they can help them for free in the laborious task of harvesting their field or planting? This does not say you do this all your life, but it becomes an opportunity to learn and develop networks in this sector, which is the most accessible to a majority and most catalytic sector, which I know for a fact, because that's an area in which I am in, that can reduce poverty up to 4 times faster than any other sector. And again, just consider this again, just for a moment, the predicament of someone who has graduated and holds a certificate in hand. We know that many of them back home and across the entire African continent, they hold these certificates and they apply for jobs everywhere with no success. The question is, where do they start in tapping the challenges as opportunities? And I'm asking this question because I know they will come up. And I want to debug them here directly so that all of us are on the same page. The key, once again, is the same. They cannot look at material which they do not have. But we tend only to look at what we don't have. We don't look at what we have. But rather, we must look inwardly at what they have in them. And for them, this is not only the ability for selflessness, which they must exercise. The ability, again, is to swallow this empty pride and contextualize what they have learned to devise solutions to the challenges we see. And one universal thing that all of us will agree, one universal thing that anyone who has gone through school learns and must have, is the ability to find the right information, the ability to be trainable, and to self-train based on the context of available opportunities. Most of the times we don't do this. And this leads me to this aspect we must consider, which is the single most important thing we need to tap challenges as opportunities is our demonstrable usefulness, because the purpose of life is to be useful. What we can offer, our value, because value is very important. There are only two things. You either create value or you lose value. There's no in between. You either create value or you lose value. And your usefulness is what makes the difference. And your usefulness can only be when you bring something to the table, your skill in solving a problem. Because this resides in the inherent ability, our ability for selflessness, our skills, our talents. And I've asked this question many times and I've never really had an answer. I've asked this and I'm glad that I'm in a community of experts today. I have asked myself this question. No one has ever answered me satisfactorily. And that question is, what really makes an African more special than other human beings on this earth? What makes us more special? What makes a Cameroonian more special than other Africans in other countries? What makes Africans more special than Asians or Latin Americans? Let's be very realistic here. And when you ask this question, why do we think that others need to come out and solve our challenges in the continent? Why do we always think that other people must do it for us? That we need help always. This is indeed one biggest fallacy that I've never ever really understood. It's a fallacy in our minds that has constrained us, the box of dependency. But at least we forget, God is no respecter of persons. It doesn't really matter where one comes from. One of my favorite African proverbs reminds us that we must not look at where we fell, but rather where we slipped. The picture is not complete before we can answer the question of where the proverbial rain started hitting us to perpetuate this dependency mindset, to orchestrate this imagination of not self-believing in ourselves, that false narrative of external or validating something before we believe in. Where did we slip? The answer is we slipped in our attitudes. Attitude. The foundational challenge we face is an attitude problem. And this has resulted in what I call passing the buck syndrome. The passing the buck syndrome is very, very high in the continent. The entitlement mentality that we have, which disempowers us from thinking solutions. That's the truth. That's the truth. And that's why I started off by saying, I better be expelled from the 9 villages for speaking the truth. We are conditioned right from our homes by our society, regardless of any part of the society in this continent. We are conditioned to think that anything that goes wrong, we must blame somebody. Growing up, we are told about the well-off uncle or auntie or brother or sister or cousin who can help you. And when it doesn't help you, what happens? You know better. They are never told. Young people and children are never told that they need to be of value to complement these relatives or any other person for that matter. And that is how they can tap into opportunities. We are not told that. A student in school is told to work hard because the certificates they will get will be their license and entitlement to a well-paying job from where they can start to enjoy life and all those things, right? You know better. They're never told that the certificate they get is actually a responsibility bequeathed on them to become solution providers and devise solutions to the challenges in their society, in their communities, in their villages. And most of those working or do the same thing, because that's why I'm saying this, because if the foundation is broken, a strong house cannot stand. And we must diagnose these issues before we actually get to the solutions. Most of those working like us think that the purpose of work is to reap financial and material gain. Wrong. They work for the paycheck and they try their best to do the bare minimum instead of drawing satisfaction in seeing how the job they do deliver solutions to touch many lives beyond where they come from, beyond your country, even beyond the continent. I have seen many who, after they get what they want, after they have been assisted to get whatever thing they want, whether it is a job, quickly forget and retreat to their comfort zones of doing the bare minimum. They get to the office in the morning, looking forward to when the day will end. This is part of the reason we are stuck where we are as a continent and even a country. Instead, one should aim to leave a mark and constantly improve. Instead, one should go the extra mile and volunteer to take new extra responsibility. That's what everybody should do. Volunteer and write a promotional piece about an organization you are aspiring to join one day, not only sending in job applications and complaining, they never give me that job now, they hate me, I'm not lucky. Those are fallacies. It's such acts of selflessness and appreciation and positive attitude that make one stand out. There is no secret to the top. It's hard work, discipline, and effort. As simple as that. We focus our energies on ways to make ourselves comfortable, on ways to eat, and because of this, we look for the easiest ways we can make money. And with this, the consequences is that everyone finds an excuse to blame one another, to place the responsibility on someone else, and the list goes on. But all the while, the challenges remain unresolved as everyone passes the buck of responsibility to another. And this is the background of the challenges. And I wanted to lay this before I get. So to solve this, we need a three-pronged approach, a complete reset. I call it a complete reset because if we do not reset this in these critical stages, where the first is finding purpose, the second is contextualizing this purpose to our immediate surroundings, our villages or communities, and the last is the reward you get out of this. And finding purpose has to do with what I call the why equation. You must determine your why of existence, because the purpose of life is to be useful. We all have reasons for why we act in a certain way, as Dr. Temfak actually beautifully articulated, meaning that we are not strangers to the why equation. Why? Why? We are not strangers. But the problem is that most of us have been answering the question wrongly. The answer most of us give to this question draws from a motivation of self-gain, and that's wrong. It cannot be the only reason for our actions. Anything you do that is meant to only benefit yourself and your immediate family is against the fundamental principles and values of life and will be short-lived. That's true. So the another question I know will ask is, how do I determine my purpose? Well, you must first ask yourself, what is it that you like doing? Is it in fashion? Is it in playing football? Is it in music? It doesn't really matter. What is it that you really like doing? That's where you need to start. Because the productive thing that you can do, even when there is no material motivation involved, is very important. What is it that you like doing, even if there is no material motivation involved? Once you answer yourself, then the next question becomes, how can you then apply this thing that you like doing in a way that solves the challenges faced by many, in a way that touches many lives? So if you take, for example, how do you do what you do, whether it is music or in fashion, that you can be able to touch the life of those 90% of people in Cameroon in the informal sector, the women selling in the market, and the list goes on. This is how you find your purpose. With purpose, you develop passion, which I call the new currency of now. Passion is the fuel that moves ideas. And I'm glad I saw it in Dr. Temfak's conclusions. Passion is the fuel that moves ideas into real life solutions. It is what keeps one going, what fuels persistence. It is what fuels perseverance until success is achieved. And it builds now to the next aspect, which is the second aspect, context. Context matters. If you miss context, you will never get it right. And this has to do with your immediate surroundings, where your purpose will be applied. And the three most important elements of this context are people, institutions, and skill. If you do something, you are doing to solve people's challenges facing people, not animals, not trees, human beings. So these people are your most important element in your surrounding. And it is these people, our mothers in the villages, our brothers and sisters who are suffering from food insecurity, who need clean drinking water. Those are realistic challenges, who have health issues, who are suffering from waterborne diseases. What you realize with context is that it takes a whole of society approach to address the issues you are coming to solve. And if you are an individualistic and selfish person, you cannot be able to make impact. So the key operational principle of this context is something I call a chain reaction of solutions. Just to give a very practical example, a smallholder farmer in a village in Flunkankang or in Santa or in the eastern part of the country who farms her cassava will need support, firstly, at the farm level where she needs to enhance her yields, and also off farm where she needs to add value to what she produces to her cassava so that she can fetch more money. They will need support in increasing this shelf life of their post-harvest loss because they're losing. To cut those post-harvest losses, they need solutions. They don't have those solutions as we speak today. So if you take just these two areas, they present opportunities to be tapped. At the ground level, which needs fertilizer, but fertilizer that works with the environment, not against the environment. Agricultural waste can be recovered and processed into organic fertilizer. That is happening across the continent. Young people are doing that. By so doing, one is generating the waste and disposing the waste from the person that had the waste, while the farmer had the problem of needing affordable, effective fertilizer that does not jeopardize her soil so that she can grow her crops again without having any difficulties. While the one who converts the waste to fertilizer creates an enterprise opportunities for themselves. The same is, as we speak today, 600,000 people across the continent die because of indoor pollution. In Cameroon, 7,000 people die. Those are the statistics we have, and up to 70% of the population of Cameroon depend on fuel wood. Waste recovery to affordable fuel briquettes will find a ready market of the 70% currently using charcoal and firewood while driving hulls and abating indoor pollution. Why am I giving this example? The examples are also in solar dryers and this. But the last aspect under this context is institutions. To implement anything, you must leverage on what you have. I have never understood this. Sometimes we never look at what we have, we look at what we don't have. And that's what has disabled us as a continent and even as a country. We will rather say, if I don't for bank, I'm not going to save money, than to look at our surrounding and say, but there are cooperatives, we grew up with these things. We know the cooperatives, our mothers used to contribute little money to buy a bench in church or even buy our books and things to go to school. These are realities. So key institutions in the community are crucial and will need to be deployed for accountability and traceability of anything one does, for capital mobilization. And for this, the structure of communal cooperatives become very important. It stands out as one of the very key institutions at the community level that needs to be leveraged. And these local cooperatives, we have them, we call them Jangis, are critical groups that can be leveraged on, but a lot of people will bypass that and think that they can be able to solve community problems by handling individual persons. That doesn't work that way. And the last aspect, from purpose to context, is the youth and the young at heart, as I always call across the continent, they need everyone regardless of your educational level and regardless of which job you do, whether you are CEO or you are director or you are, it doesn't really matter. Everybody needs to continuously retool his skill, regardless of their area of training, because that is what actually makes one relevant all the time. And this is the kind of message we need to tell everybody, regardless of whether they are back in Africa or outside of Africa. It doesn't really matter. Because today, if you give somebody $1 billion US who doesn't have the right skills to do something, that money will get finished and you will never get anything done for it. But we want to say, oh, what do you want? I need money now. As if money is the solution. So everybody must adapt his or her skill, must focus on working in a communal way rather than individually, because as we're speaking today, we hate one another so much in this continent. Let's be realistic. Let's not pretend. We hate one another so much. So let's focus on aligning our efforts and retooling our skills so that we can tap into this. We've actually leveraged on what we call innovative volunteerism as a tool, a mindset change tool across the continent, where we're inspiring young people to leverage on their skills and talents and develop passion within the areas in which they are excited about, where they actually see their why, but guide them in a very structured way so that they can be able to address challenges. And we're seeing them developing solar dryer. We're seeing them, those in fashion, turning waste to different apparels. We're seeing those who are turning waste into briquettes, into fertilizer. And this is not only creating a groundswell of solutions, but it's proving that mindset change is possible and it can happen if we use a different approach, an approach where somebody gets challenged, not because you are challenging the person because you hate or like the person, because you want him to find his inner self and self-belief. Because the biggest challenge we have in the continent, in Cameroon inclusive, is what I call emotional poverty. Emotional poverty is lack of self-belief, and Dr. Temfak refers to this. So let's all know that there are no shortcuts to the top of the country. That Rome was not built in one day. Because somebody will say, oh, I want to change my mind today, and I want to start. Rome was not built in one day, and there are no shortcuts to the top of the country. The selfless approach of doing things is, first of all, identify what you can do and work around your skill and tap into that opportunity that you're so passionate about. It has nothing to do with where you work. It has nothing to do with the educational level, and that is how things can be changed. And every problem you solve generates wealth. Any problem you solve. If you want to become a billionaire, start thinking how we can start engaging our mothers in villages to ensure that they do not lose their food. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Munang. I mean, it was amazing, isn't it? It's about purpose, from purpose to context to passion. These are the key words. You need to understand your purpose for life. You need to contextualize that your purpose, and it needs to drive. It is driven by your passion. If you don't have passion for what you do, and you think money is all, then you're wasting your time. That's a summary of what Dr. Munang gave us. And it was amazing to listen from a very, very practical perspective of what he's doing. Dr. Richard is working with youths all over Africa because he represents Africa in the UN agency for which he works in terms of the kind of job he's doing. So we'll be leaving our contacts here, how to contact us. We have a group of Cameroonian professionals in international development. Mambo, could you please just put our Slack link here? For those who want to join the group, you should be in international development or you're interested in it, because that's where we discuss most of these things. We really want to influence Cameroon. We want to do our own little bit. We want to change the negative mindsets into positive mindset, and it all has to do with hard work, discipline, and efforts, and a purpose-driven life. That was amazing coming from you, Doctor. I want to now call on Dr. Tangem. If you are there, internet permitting, Dr. Tangem will also use his experiences to kind of like give us again some key tools we can use to change our mindset. I encourage all of you to put your questions into the chat box. All of the questions should be in the chat box. We'll read all of the questions. We'll make sure we answer all of the questions. It is an interactive session. It's not like we are kind of like teaching people. We are just enlightening people on things they already know so that they can really harness it to improve their life. So Dr. Tangem, over to you for the final session. Please stick to time, 15 minutes. After the 15 minutes now, I'll read the question in the chat box. And if others have questions now, we'll open the forum for people to ask questions, and then we'll then deliberate on the questions. Over to you, Dr. Tangem. Just bear with Dr. Tangem. He's in Ethiopia, and the internet is a bit unstable there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's yes, Tifon. I hope you are getting me okay.
We are.
Hello, Tifon. Great. So thank you very much, and let me thank Dr. Tamfak and Dr. Munang for this very, very powerful and passionate presentation. So now I'm going to talk about
Mambo, can you mute everybody? Guys, if you're not speaking, kindly mute. Mambo, mute everybody. Only Dr. Tangem should be speaking, please. Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Over to you, Dr. Tangem. If you could switch off your video, since your internet is not strong, then we could hear you loud and clear. Please, over to you.
Hello?
We can hear you. Please kindly switch your video, Dr. Tangem, to reduce the bandwidth. Yeah, so we can hear you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I think it would work well. Yeah. So yes, sorry about that. So as I was saying, I'm going to look at the importance of igniting a positive mindset to our careers. I'm going to start by from where one of the aspects that Dr. Munang brought on board, the issue of entitlement. And one of the worst images, my dear colleagues, that I saw in our country a few months ago was of PhD holders sitting, having night vigils and wake keepings in front of the Ministry of Higher Education, and crying, and they were even tear gassed and pumped with hot water by the police because they were asking the government for recruitment, for jobs. I'm talking about PhD holders, those who have spent between 7 to 10, 20, 12, 11 years in the university, being tear gassed because they were asking for jobs. I think that was an image that really, it's difficult for me to remove from my brain. And that bring clearly the issue of entitlement that Dr. Monang eloquently spoke about. So talking about the importance of mindset, of positive mindset in careers, we know what is happening in the world today. The jobs are hard. Jobs are very difficult days. And because of the COVID pandemic breakout last year, so many jobs, so many people have lost their jobs. If you look at the statistics, at one time in the US, we had 20 million people out of jobs, looking for jobs. And so when you, as a professional, look at it, it is very difficult to keep a positive code, which means at our current job site, competitions are real. People are afraid. Working with intergovernmental and international organizations where most of our funding comes from our member states and our international, it becomes very difficult when you see the economic indicators at zero. We look on South Africa as one of our biggest contributors, and then you see Standard & Poor's saying that they are on negative. The economy is negative. And you know that those guys are those who are contributing in your salaries. Imagine how to keep a positive mindset in your career when everything seems so bleak. But the dilemma of this is that this skin, I think Dr. Tenfak already showed us very, very clearly the biological, it is all about garbage in, garbage out. If garbage in, you would receive garbage because the mind or the brain is like what they call a supercomputer. It only stores what you give it to it. And so at this time of COVID, at this time when nothing is clear, at this time when jobs are difficult, this is the time that we need to build a thick skin. This is the time that we need to develop a positive mindset in order to be resilient. For those of us in sustainable development, vulnerability is a state of mind when you can no longer resist to shock, when you easily give into shock. But you build your resilience to be able to mitigate the impact of shock. And so, tool for resilience, especially at a difficult period. So how do you develop a positive mindset? How will a positive mindset take your career forward? There are certain aspects that I would like to bring out. There is a saying that I heard from one big talk show lady that said, if you don't stand for something, you are going to fall for anything. If you don't stand for something, you are going to fall for anything. And so if you are already in a job today and you have to, and things are mindset, the first thing that you have to do, and I think most of our colleagues, the two of my colleagues have said it, is all about looking at your surrounding. It's all about looking at, it's all about knowing how to deal.
Dr. Tange, we lost you a little bit. Are you still there? Dr. Tangem? We lost him. We lost him. We lost Dr. Tangem. Dr. Tangem is in Ethiopia and the internet there is not very strong. For those of you who've traveled to Ethiopia, you would know already that internet is a very political tool.
Hello?
Yeah, are you back?
Yes, I'm back.
Hello?
I think I will use.
Please use one of your, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yes. Are you getting me, T?
Yeah, loud and clear.
So I talk about the power of positive emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is about how to master the way we feel and the way we think. Sometimes people think that you should be determined by the way you think. I think Dr. Tamfa talks about imagination and imagined action. Most of the thoughts in our brains are imaginations. They don't exist. We need to strengthen our emotional intelligence to understand that when you are at a job, you start being afraid. You don't know what is going to happen. You listen to CNN, you listen to the news. It's all about negative economic indexes, negative economic indicators, and you start being afraid. You go to the office, you look at your friends, you look at your colleagues, you start thinking whether this colleague is not going to take your job. You start thinking about what is the next move. And then you allow yourself to be taken over by your emotions. And then you start being very brutal with the junior staffs that are looking up to you. You start being afraid. When the director calls anybody in the office, you are like, why were you called? What is the director talking about? This is the time to strengthen your emotional intelligence and to make sure that you should separate the reality from the fiction. Most of our thoughts, nothing kills a man as the worst as the wrong thoughts. We need to free ourselves from negative thoughts. We need to believe in ourselves. We need to believe in ourselves. When you are at work, if you want the positive mindset to take you forward, you need to believe in yourself. You need to understand that you were recruited. You are the expert. Do you know how many people that apply for a job, if you get your job genuinely, you will know that you should try to go back into the recruitment department of your organization if you have the chance. If you are feeling low, go and ask them how many people applied for this job that I had. Even 10 years down the line, they have all the records. I saw mine one time in one of my jobs where we had 600 applicants for that job. 600 applicants. And I came out victorious. Those are some of the things, like Dr. Tamfak said, that keeps me going. That there were 600 people that applied for these jobs and I got it. And so it makes me strengthen my belief. One thing that we also need to do is to measure our progress. When you wake up in the morning, you are going to job, like I will always quote Dr. Mona. Are you going to mark your timesheet or are you going to deliver? That is a very big question that I ask myself every morning. I set up, don't go and say I'm going to write a paper and finish. It's impossible. But what I do is, if I can carve out just the problem statement and I draw the outlook of the paper, if I can just produce one very good speech for my commissioner, I have set, before I go to my office, I've already set up those things that I'm going to do. And it helps me to be more efficient in my job. One thing that is very important that many people don't do, help others around you. I tell you, we are in a world of what they call dog eat dog. For those of us in these international jobs, you know what I'm saying. We are in an environment where many people who want to squash and destroy the least competitor. And so helping each other becomes very difficult. But how can you not help each other if you want to grow? The only way you should know that you are mature is when at your job site, you are able to mentor a young person and you see the young person climbing from P1 to P2 to P3, and you are at P4 and you are not sure whether that young person within the next 2 years is not going to take your job. So you need to help every person, especially the young people. I always tell people that there is nothing as dangerous as a young man with an ambition. An ambitious young man is more dangerous than a gun. And so if you are in your organization and there is an ambitious young man and you think you can block that guy, you are as good as resigning from that organization. You can build your career by helping each other. In fact, that is the only way you can actually build your career. And another thing is you must be a learner and you must practice gratitude, and you must have the one big issue that I want to bring is the power of imagination. If Richard is with UNEP today and he is not thinking of becoming the director or replacing Inga, the current senior executive for UNEP, and then he should change. You must don't sit down and look at myself. If my career path is about the Africa Union, the only thing I'm seeing myself is the chairperson of the Africa Union. And I gave it 5 years to become the chairperson. And I'm not afraid to dream that dream. If the Africa Union is where I want to finish my career. And so I have this book called The Power of Thinking Big. You cannot be a P2 3 years, 5 years down the line. The only way you improve yourself is by the default 6 months increment, accumulation of years. My dad used to tell me that Elvis, if you are in an organization, after 3 years and they have not called you for promotion, you should start thinking of leaving. After 4 years, if you are there again after 5 years, it means you have caught the disease of the comfort zone, which is one of the worst diseases that many career people have. And why do people end up in comfort zones? Because of the lack of positive mindset. Positive mindset. The lack of the positive mindset is what develops what we call comfort zones. You must avoid comfort zones. You must know that in your career path, there is the need for improvement. Even if the money that you are making is so much for you, and you no longer need, you just think that you can sleep, even if they give you what we call an indefinite contract, as many organizations do these days. Please be afraid of when you become too comfortable in your job. And there are other tips that I can talk about. They say about dealing with our emotions. They say, don't let your emotion to define you. And I have started by talking about the current situation of COVID. And I'm telling you, this situation, we have more than 5 years to come out completely of the COVID situation. And it's a very, very depressing time. But no matter how depressed you are, no matter how depressed you feel, especially at your workplace, know that they are just imagination. Don't let that depression to define who you are. You have to separate who you are from what your mind is telling you, especially when it comes to negativity, because negativity is a job killer.
Thank you, Elvis. Dr. Tangem, yes. Can you please conclude? There are many people who want to ask questions. Thank you.
Yes, I am concluding now. And because we have grown up in a society where our parents, many of us had parents that had no clue about how to motivate us when we were children. What the one recommendation that I'm going to make, because we are all professionals in this group, please, if you have a child, if you have children, start teaching them all these things that we are trying to develop today. Read books, start teaching them about the importance of policies and politics, start teaching them about the power of dreaming big. Tell your child that by the time you are 40, you have to be the president of Cameroon. If he will not be the president, he will be the minister, or he will be at least a director in the ministry. That is the power of positive mindset in career. Take it down to your children. Some of us are already on the other side of our careers. So the only thing we can do is to take it down to our children. Teach them, talk to them, remind them, tell them to be positive and to know that they don't lack anything. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tangam. That was wonderful. You need to be very ambitious. You need to want to become the commissioner of the African Union where you're currently working. Even though, you know, having progress in career doesn't really necessarily mean impact, because creating more impact wherever you are is very important. But you need to dream big. You need to imagine yourself going further than where you are. And for those who were confusing what P2 is just a professional level. In the international organizations, we have levels of P1, P2, P3, P4. So it's just the level of grades. Yeah, that's the better I was looking for. So I want to thank the panelists for, you know, the different aspects that they've brought. We've heard about passion and purpose. We've heard about, you know, dreaming big. You know, we've heard about success. We've heard about dehypnotizing your mindset, all the negative, garbage in, garbage out. So it was a very fantastic discussions. We'll now open this for the plenary for discussions, but we will start now with the questions that we have in the box. The first question is from Dr. Fru, and it's to Dr. Temfak. Can you yourself change your self-image, or do you need an expert who is not accepted by our society? I'm sure he's relating to the fact that we usually bring experts from outside to advise us on how to change our mindset and things. So can we ourselves do it? So over to you, Dr. Temfak.
Yes, I think one of the take-home messages from the way I coined the presentation is just to let us know that we have all what it takes to become who we are. I didn't mention external factors as a need for change in mindset. However, you may need assistance, but that will and wish for a change in mindset has to come from you. Remember, Richard said in certain situations, people will complain that the only reason why I cannot do something with my life is because I don't have money. And there are people you give all the money in the world, they wouldn't do anything. There are some people you would just give them the opportunity and very little resources, and they will do a lot. It's not because they are superhuman beings. It's simply because every obstacle for them is an opportunity to do something which is useful. So this week for mindset change starts with yourself. As you start along, you may seek assistance from someone else. You know, there is this in psychology. There is this notion of hypnosis, and hypnosis is based on the fact that the person who is listening to you believes fully in what you're trying to say. So if somebody is willing to change a mindset and believes that this thing you're telling them about themselves is true, that's already hypnosis. And it has been shown in hypnosis experiments that if somebody is listening to the hypnotizer and believes that the hypnotizer's finger is fire, the point where the hypnotizer touches forms a blister. That can tell you how strong the power of belief is. And that's one of the reasons why I say, when we believe in ourselves to be incompetent, to be useless, we act, we behave, we talk accordingly so as to prove to ourselves that this is consistently true. And the moment somebody says you are a useless man, you don't even check the validity of what he says, you just incorporate it and you behave like that. But with somebody who is in the direction of a positive mindset, if you tell him you are a foolish man, and you both are in the same office, that person will tell you, I really appreciate that it's because I was foolish that I was made to work in the same office like you, which means that he looks at it as two foolish men trying to solve a problem. And we understand that we don't understand the problem very well, but let's work hard. Stop telling me I'm a foolish man. So that's somebody who has a positive mindset. But somebody who has a negative mindset, the minute you say that, oh my God, he just packs his things and go home because he believes he's good for nothing. And he has to make that consistent. So just to conclude, I would say that change in positive mindset starts with yourself. As you start the process, if you think somebody else could be of help to you, then you join that person. I will tell you, I read Maxwell Maltz's book when I was 22. I discovered that book by mistake. And at the time, it was seeming like something very supernatural, but the book is a very simple read. It makes you to learn how to know about yourself. So you can start the process, and then you use these books to teach yourself. And I've got a handful of these books that I've read, that I can share the list with people. It's really amazing. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's fantastic. And just to add, when Obama coined the campaign, "Yes, we can," it was all about positive mindset. He was telling the Americans that we can do it, and it starts from there. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. So I want to go to the next question again from Dr. Fru. This is to Dr. Temfak and Dr. Munang. He said, what is the role of society in structuring its success? Does our society demand quality of services provided to them? A good doctor will be more successful than a low quality doctor, for example. A sense of that spirit of challenge is promoted. How are organizations structured in a sense that the spirit of challenge is promoted? I'll start with Dr. Munang, and then if Dr. Temfak has something to add, then he can add. Over to you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that's a very important question, and I think it brings out the mistakes we've been making. The reality is that the construct of an African society have evolved, but have not evolved in a holistic way to take into consideration that there are some missteps that were made even before independence that we never ever answered them. And this is the truth. We never ever answered them, and so we've carried them forward. For example, just to build on what Dr. Tangem and Dr. Tefak have said, the individualistic attitude of us seems to be getting perpetuated as we speak today across the continent. People want to succeed alone. And society will glorify those who have more money and more material regardless of how they got it. I know I'm bringing in that dimension. And as a result of that, the aspiration of young people is to get rich regardless of how they get rich. And then process get compromised and products now become more important. So we bypass process because we want to jump to the top. We want to become the prime minister, right? We want to become the executive director. We want to become the United Nations Secretary General without asking ourselves, is it position that implement or it's passion? And do we work to leave a legacy or we love to amass wealth to be respected in society? The fact is this. Our educational system, and I don't really want to dwell that on a lot because it produces us, right? But is it perfect? No. It is not. But should we only depend on it and cry that government needs to do A, B, C, D? Absolutely not. What we are doing here today is part of the education. And therefore, it means that each and every one of us must take it upon ourselves. That responsibility, that personal responsibility to start inculcating the attitudes in every place we are, both young and old, to ensure that we make people know that having a job is not the end of the world. We will retire from these jobs. We will move from these jobs, right? But the question is, what will you be remembered for? And that is called legacy. That then means that society failed. People want to be excited in the village. My daughter is in America. My son is in Europe. Oh, Munang has gone to Nottingham to study PhD. But the question is, what about the other person whose son has not gone to Nottingham to study PhD like Dr. Munang, but who is doing excellent things, who is helping a mother to make sure that he doesn't lose what he's producing, who is helping train kids to be carpenters, to be construction. So we miss out that aspect of society to appreciate progress and solutions and rather adore material, and that has destroyed society. So what's the point? A mindset change in how we see reality needs to change, because reality is not about material, it's about what you can do to touch lives.
Very good.
Thank you very much, Dr. Munang. Dr. Elvis, Dr. Tangem, you want to add something?
Yes, just to say that I think Brother Richard touched the spot. about the process and the product. If we take a case in point, Tifon, just for 1 minute, you look at our country, Cameroon, where we all come from. There is something that is happening in Cameroon which my heart goes, you know. I have seen somebody who comes and proposes, hey, Mr. Tangep, I want you to buy this plot. I need 15 million to buy my son's entrance into ENAM. I need this amount of money to do this. And you know very well. And I look at the person, I said, Pa, you want to sell your plot. And the son is standing there and he wants to pay. The son is standing with the man. And I said, okay, Pa, let me think over it. And after that, I go, when the son is no longer there, I said, Pa, what do you think you are doing? What do you think you are doing? This country, what do you want from this country at 65 to 70 years? You are retired. What do you want? He said, oh, come on. What do you want to teach me? This is how it works. Maybe this white man country, where you the state, so it don't confuse you. So that is, and those are the kind of things that we need to change in our country. And as I insist on the fact that for those of us listening here, we have children, we have genius. Let us take time to start telling them this thing. Tell them the power of positive mind, and tell them the power of passion at work, the need for result, and the need for a legacy. If we don't do that, all of us sitting here with the bit of money that we have, we are going to buy enams for our children and our junior ones. We are going to buy middlemen to send our children to bush, as we see people spending 10 million to go to Guatemala to end up it. So we need to change our mind. Thank you very much.
Yes, I think I'll add something to that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Dr. Tangem, Dr. Temfak, sorry. Yeah.
Yes, I think one of the keys, and I think Dr. Tangem mentioned that before, in changing the mindset, that we have that responsibility to do that. Because at our generation now, some of us may fail, not because we want to fail, like looking at the example that Dr. Tangem gave, it's simply because we were not shown how to do the right thing. But now the advantage we have is that we are in the era of exposure to information. I don't need to be in Waterloo Library in London to be able to read this book. I can buy it online, teach myself a few things. So how do we start by changing this perception in our kids? We should teach our children to believe in themselves, to know that they can do, even if it means just cleaning the table after having breakfast. When the child does it well, you congratulate him and say, yes, you did it well, or you did it, it was good, but it can be better. You show him how to do it. And then you teach the child not to, you don't ask the child, what do you want to become tomorrow? Make him to ask the question, what problem do I want to solve? Today, we are amazed about the way the Chinese are really invading the world. They are invading the world because every single activity, they want to make it automatic. They make machines to separate the maize from the cobs. They make machines to be able to till the soil. It simply means each and every person identified a problem and thought about a solution. And this solution is what is driving it. It is this aspect of knowing what you can do, identifying a problem, and then trying to move towards a solution. Because whether we like it or not, that is how man has been groomed to become a solution finder, a problem solver. Everything we do, we just want to solve a particular problem. But we should stop thinking that solutions always come from without. Solutions come from within. And our education should be contextualized. You know, one other thing about our field of medicine is that it's impossible to go study medicine in Russia and then the day you graduate, the next day you come to Cameroon and you start working in a hospital. Because in that case, everybody would think that you're incompetent simply because The diseases that you were taught mostly in the practicals there don't exist here, and vice versa for anybody who lives from here and goes there to practice, for example. So it means that our solutions should always be tailored to our context. And somebody asked a question about how can we bring in this mindset change in our curriculum. It starts at home, and then those of us who have the opportunity to do presentations in seminars or in universities, it could be part of our introductory lessons the first day we come to class, to make the students to believe that you are not coming here to teach them, you're coming here to open their mind to teach themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There was a question from Lem Sarah. I think that's been answered. It was about our education. I think Dr. Munang summarized it. We can't blame our education system because it produced us. We are example of the fact that the education system is not that, broken, because there's more to be done, no doubt. But we are looking at the positives as well because we came out from that same system. So I can see some hands are up, Judwin and Aton Lune. I want to go through all the questions in the chat box, then I'll come to you guys. So on the education, okay, positive, emotional, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I want to see if I'm not missing the question. Okay, there is a question from Amma. I would like to ask her, how can we start building a positive thinking habit or growth mindset in our school systems? I think that has been answered as well, Amma. Can you nod? I think you're on video. Can you nod, or do you want them to expatiate on that again? Okay, so that's been answered. I can see him nodding. So a lot of speakers in place confirm that emotional intelligence enables people to grow in their careers more than IQ. Someone with a great attitude will usually perform better than an intelligent person with a bad attitude. Okay, so this is just a contribution. Okay, well observed. There are great needs for mentorship. Yes, true. Please, can any of the speakers place strong emphasis on the virtue of humility? People need to understand that. I think that was also spoken. That's from Kizita. I think humility has been spoken a lot here. You can't just leave from where you are to become executive director. You need to. There is a process that you need to go through. I think Dr. Munang, you really emphasized on that. I think that has been answered as well. Pardon?
Maybe I can comment on that one.
Okay, yeah, Dr. Tefak, go.
There is this popular writer called Robert Greene. In one of his books entitled Mastery, he clearly he builds on this issue on this stuff of believing in yourself, having the ability to observe your environment, and then use the information to build yourself. He says, if you wake up one morning and think that you will leave from your house and the next day you're the director of NASA, you are not telling the truth to yourself. And that comes in this thing of dehypnotizing yourself from lies. Becoming a master in a particular field is a process. There's the first process where you observe the other people working, it needs time. Then you have somebody who is a mentor, who acts like your feedback. When you go off course, he corrects you. When you go on the right course, he appreciates you. And then you have the time to practice, and you can never learn if you are not humble enough. Because we have had instances where I pronounce something and my daughter says, Daddy, that is not how you pronounce it. If you are not humble enough, you will hit the child and say, don't speak to your father like that.
We'll close in the next 10 minutes, all right? Goodwin.
So, hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me. I'm very pleased and honored to have attended this webinar. I think it was a good idea. Unfortunately, I keep getting the time wrong because UK is 1 hour ahead. So I'm Judwin. I'm a doctor and I work in the UK. For anybody who doesn't know me, I think this was quite a very relevant topic. And unfortunately, what I seem to find is that most of the people who attend these kind of webinars are people who already have it going in life, and the people that you sort of expect to attend, they don't. And I was reading the comment, one of a friend's post today, Monique Quachan. She's a lecturer in university. She studied in the UK, and she was moaning about the educational system in Cameroon, that more than half of her students don't know how to use. She's a lecturer in UB, and more than half of her students don't know how to use an email. They don't know how to attach documents to an email and send or something. And I think that, so that talks about, with that, I'm just referring to the educational system. I think someone made a comment about the educational system being, is the problem, but you also have to make a lot of an effort to build yourself. But I think the one thing that people lack, we can talk about having a positive mindset, we can talk about a lot of things, but if young people don't have a vision, then there's nothing they can do about themselves. Then you'd find people, selling land for people to go through really dangerous areas, or, buying people's way into Enam, or, just having a matricle, which cannot be a vision. Unfortunately, having a matricle seems to be all what people target at, and I think that it's important that we have to start mentoring young people to have a vision. And that sort of gears towards producing, being a problem solver, but you need to have a vision, know what you want to do, know what your capabilities are, know what your limitations are. And secondly, I think someone said about orienting children and so. I'm also a pediatric doctor, and the one thing that I emphasize to parents, for example, is that children follow parents. Children will follow their parents. So if you're not doing the right things, I'm sorry, your children will take after you no matter what you say. So you have to have that mindset as well, and you have to keep on talking and impacting. I remember as a kid, my mom always said, you have to be better than your parents. So I always looked forward to, Thank you for organizing.
Thank you very much, Judwin. Judwin is a doctor in the United Kingdom. She's also a Chevening scholar. Dr. Munang also is a Chevening scholar, by the way, just for information. I want to give the floor to Lemnue. Lemnue, your hands up. Could you talk as well? Do you have a contribution? Anybody who has a contribution, please come. We have 7 more minutes to go. It is good that people talk. It's a sharing session. Lemnue, your hand is up.
Yes.
Are you there?
I'm there. Good evening to everybody, and I'm happy to be part of this webinar. I want, because there's one of our speakers. I also want to salute all the speakers for their excellent presentation. I am a Tony, and I'm working at the partnership section in UNICEF. What I want to say, my predecessor has already said it, that this webinar is organized.
We're having some feedback, please. Can you kindly mute if you're not speaking so we can hear Lemne, please? Everybody mute yourself. Thank you very much.
With this webinar, unfortunately, the people that really have to listen to this webinar are not there. Most of the people here, they already have it going. They already have that positive mindset. They already have the means to navigate themselves through. But what about the young Cameroonians? We have talked about, I remember some few years ago when I was in the university, I already had these skills of purpose. You see themselves turning around at the page for 10 years at the same position, and the ongoing Northwest and Southwest crisis has increased on these challenges on the ground. So as a young youth, what should we be telling them? Because no, if there were participants in these webinars, they will tell you, oh, we all have this positive mindset, oh, we all have all these things that you've said, but the preconditions for them to excel is not there. We have already succeeded, as I can say, I can put it, and we are still climbing the ladder. But for them that are still starting, we know the government has been there for 38 years. The same leadership style has been existing for 38 years. What can change? How can we change the youth? Because everything is out. We need to see how we will benefit our society, especially Cameroon. Cameroon is going down.
Thank you, Lemnue. Thank you very much. We need to move forward. Thanks for the contribution, very important contribution. Lemnue is working for UNICEF in Jordan. So if there's anybody in Jordan, you want to say hi, have a coffee, you have a Cameroon in Jordan. Mr. Green, please, just 1 minute. And then after that, Gabi, 1 minute, please. Contribution for 1 minute, please. Because the panelists have to give their closing statements.
Of what's available, because if you look at Cameroon now, if you switch on your TV, it's all about debates on politics. Come to this CPDM, that nothing about financial literacy. No one knows anything. We talk about financial bills, but no one on the street knows how it's going to impact their life. So that's something that I really feel like it has to change. We need to change. It's not all about politics. There's so much more to do. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Green. That's very fantastic, and you're very right. It's and they were giving us all of the information we're digesting is something that doesn't really help us. You see all the negative news, the CPDM that come to this, and you're absolutely right. I will give the floor to Dr. Fru Ndenge. After Dr. Fru, we have Gabi. Then there's Mungai. Dr. Fru, over to you.
So thank you guys very well. I appreciate it a lot. There's just one thing I'm missing. It's not negative thinking, but it's positive thinking. Positive thinking in the sense that we should start thinking in our whole education system, in our whole human being, of creating jobs, creating possibilities for people. That's we that have made it. We have made it. I would say we have not made it, but people can start creating jobs from childhood, this whole schooling system. So we just talked about funding, economy, and business and possibilities, but the negative mindset is being done because people don't have opportunities. So with us, we have to start thinking about giving opportunities to people, creating jobs. And as I said before, to close that up, the quality of our consumption determines how the society is developing. If I see bad roads and I prefer to travel on the bad roads, as I'm an engineer, I don't demand that the roads should be good, things will not change. If I see bad hospitals and I don't ask for good services, things will not change. So asking for services is something which is positive too. So if you demand, the demand side of things should be very positive in forcing people to create jobs. Okay, thank you, that's my point of view.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fru. Dr. Fru is a senior brother also, as a Shesan, the thing, and then he lives in Germany. So if in Germany, you can reach out. I want to give the floor to Gabi and Mungai. Gabi, then after Gabi, Mungai, please. Then after that, we'll go back to the panelists to do their closing statements. We know it's a very interesting session, but we don't want to, do the Cameroon style of let it run forever. There has to be an end to every good thing, isn't it? Every good thing must come to an end. I believe in that. So Gabi, and after Gabi, Mungai, and then we go over to the panelists. Yeah, Gabi.
All right. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you loud and clear.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm Techago Gabi, a teacher in Bamenda. and I've been teaching for the past 9 years. And you know, I have a little bit of experience with what has to do with the mindset of Cameroon youth. So I would just want to add up to what Mrs. Lemnui actually said. And I'll add up by saying that we need to teach our children to define themselves and define their path. You know, it's not always about getting the children to choose a job that is selling in the market, getting them to want to be the next senior divisional officer, or the next medical doctor, because we have friends whose children are medical doctors. But we need to teach them from the base to define for themselves what they want to do. You know, we talk to them about education because in Cameroon right now, a lot of children are into the dynamics of getting certificates. I want to get a first degree, I want to get a master's degree, I want to get a PhD. But if you ask them what is the purpose of these certificates that are being amassed, few of them have the right answers to give you. I'm a perfect example, and I'll not be afraid to say that here because it's going to help perhaps others who are climbing the ladder to understand the need for purpose. After having my certificate of teaching in an ENS somewhere in Cameroon, I started teaching, but I felt that there was something missing. I went in for a first master's degree in the International Relations Institute of Cameroon, where I got a master's in international communication and public action. I thought it would end there, but after that, I still found myself lacking. I went for a second master's degree in cooperation development and environmental management. I'm done with that, and I'm still feeling that there is something lacking. What is the problem? Defining the purpose from the base, starting up for the right reason to solve the right problems. Thank you very much. The coordinators are doing a great job. Let me end there for now.
Thank you very much. Defining the purpose from the base is very important. The purpose is very important. Mungai, over to you. And then Eunice. Eunice, after Eunice, please no more. Mungai and Eunice. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tifon, for giving me the floor. I take this opportunity to thank our panelists. Your presentations have really been brilliant. I equally seize this opportunity to reiterate on the aftermath of our webinar. That's really where my focus is, on the aftermath. Many of our fellow colleagues on the call spoke about how do we reach out to those who do not have the opportunity of logging in and following this conversation. Which reminds me of something I proposed, that as a collective group of development professionals, we try to create outlets where we disseminate this information. It is good we are recording. One of the things we can do is, for example, which is really free, is also link this webinar onto our Facebook page, for example. I don't know, Mr. Tifon, if we have plans for doing something like that, where people can now connect to the Facebook page and follow what is being said. I'm not a very good writer, but I know that after this, we can put up a structure where we kind of write maybe a manifesto or an article pinpointing on the key essential elements each panelist raised, which we can then share on our WhatsApp groups and share on other social media platforms, so that those who don't have the opportunity or those who are not well to do, like some of our partners, hold of this information. I rest my case there, and again, I thank you for this brilliant initiative, and I look forward to more. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Very fantastic views there. You addressed it earlier, and I think it's something we need to take forward. We would have to create a Facebook page for this organization or this group. We will have to also see how we can expand the readership or the viewership, and also maybe to write a white paper. What you're talking about is a white paper where we have key points that came from here. So it's a very, I think it's something that we need to take as an action point from here. Thank you very much for that. Eunice, please, over to you. Eunice, are you there? Okay.
Can you hear me, please?
Yeah, we can hear you now, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I couldn't ask for more. My name is Eunice Basson. I'm a nurse here in the United States. Hello?
We can hear you. We can hear you, yeah.
You can hear me? Okay. Yes, I believe giving back to our community is the ultimate goal. My question is directed to Dr. Tenfak. Dr. Tenfak, using our analytic brain, How can we diagnose this statement that Africa's ability to reach its economic potential has been hindered by a brain drain? That is, loss of well-educated professionals who seek opportunities in other abroad. Let me just put it abroad. How can we diagnose that?
Okay.
Dr. Temfak?
Yes, I think that's an interesting question. It's a very complex situation. First of all, I would say that it's not everybody who has that passion to go overseas, study, and come back to provide the services that they learned in their community. And when those who have that viewpoint say it in some instances, it creates double feelings. Those who are pro using that knowledge where they acquired it feel like it's not needed to come back to Africa. And those who decide to come back to apply that knowledge in their community, they see it differently. I think it boils back to what Richard was saying, and I don't want to point fingers. I just want to bring out a point. It has to do with individual, with what each and every person wants to have. If you grow, if you build the mindset of being rich because you want to have a huge bank account, then you go to a community where you can fulfill that dream. But if you feel rich by being able to positively impact people's lives, you will not care if the bank account is not huge, and you will go to the areas where you can impact those lives. So I think there is a lot of individual choices in this, but Africans have to stop thinking that other people need to come and solve their problems. And one of the main purposes of us creating this 237 development group, it's because we want to build a situation to make people to understand that we have our problems, we understand our problems very well, we can diagnose them very well, and already identifying a problem is 50% solving it. So we should be the actors in this change that we need and we want in our communities. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Temfak. I think without much ado now, I'm going to leave the panelists to do their concluding statement. I will start with Dr. Tangem, then Dr. Munang, and then Dr. Temfak would close. Then I'll do the wrap up. And then for those of you who want to join our group, there's been a Slack link that has been shared. You need to go to Play Store, download the Slack into your phone before you can join the group, without which if you click on it, it will keep saying unavailable, because I hear a lot of people saying that Slack has to be installed first on your phone before you can join. And if that is too difficult, you can reach out to the panelists or myself on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook, and leave your WhatsApp number. I'll be able to add you on into the WhatsApp group. So Dr. Tangem, over to you.
Yes,
is our Ethiopia connection okay now?
No,
Are you there?
No, it's great. Yeah. So thanks very much to Richard and Elvis. And please let me correct it, Junior Elvis.
Like the one.
And thanks very much for all those who have participated. I think I just want to give take-home messages. And I also want to mention what Mungai said. The aftermath of this is very important. And I'm happy also with the reply from you, our moderator. So I think the take-home message here, and which I'm insisting on, yes, many of those who need what we are saying here are not here. But those people are our friends, they are our brothers, they are our children. They say, the French people put it better. Charité bien coordonnée commence par soi-même. Charity begins at home. Let us try by all means. Let us not neglect what we can tell our children. We can teach them by examples, but our words are powerful. So let us invest what we've had here. Let's make time to teach our children. Another thing that I would take home, message is what we lack is what we call community mindset, positive mindset. Tifon, you know how we grew up at the latter stage of our life. We used to sit together, young people in not so rich living quarter in Bamenda. We would sit under our tree. We have a tree we used to call under tree. What did we used to do there? We were not drinking. We had magazines. We were taking newspapers. We were reading, looking for scholarship. And I can tell you here without fear, I applied for more than 100 scholarships before becoming a Chevening scholar. And so we need to have a community mindset. They say birds of the same feather flock together. The people you associate with. So I'm already very comforted by all of us that are here. It means we want to improve ourselves. So let us also try to improve, because the only way we become masters is by bringing up young people and by bringing up those of our colleagues and our friends that need assistance with their mindset. And I'm not publicity aside. I will tell you one group that I joined that transformed my life and transformed the way I saw things was the Junior Chamber International. And I know Mungai will be smiling. Junior Chamber International transformed me.
Thank you, Elvis. Can you conclude?
Yes.
The panelists will have 2 minutes of conclusion. Thank you.
In concluding, let us encourage our young people to work for passion, to give back to their community, to create networks, and to have a vision. Thank you very much. And those are the skills that we got from Junior Chamber International. So I will tell all the people who are 18 and above to join. One group to join is the Junior Chamber International. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tangam. And the tree he's talking about, we coined the tree, the wisdom tree, because that was where we will sit and we'll go through the brochures. Remember back then there were no emails and stuff, so we'll go through the brochures manually. And that's how we got admissions to all study in Britain and all over the world. Thank you so much for bringing the memories, Dr. Tangam. Dr. Munang, 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Fon. Thanks, Dr. Temfak and Dr. Tangam, and thanks to everybody. I mean, we were merely just discussants, and you guys contributed excellent ideas. So these are my takeaway, and these are not new, but these are things you already know. First is, to solve a problem, one webinar is not going to change that much, but it can start. Starting is the most important. And where this starts doesn't really matter, because to change the problems of Africa or Cameroon will not happen in a day. And even if you give everybody a job, you will not solve the problems of Africa or Cameroon. What does this mean? We need to start inculcating a mindset. If you are a teacher, can you start integrating that into your teachings? If you're a climate change specialist like myself, can through my project, I start engaging and infusing that mindset, change that a project come and end, but you need to take it off using different approaches. And the second one is that we are used to negative narratives. We like to talk about problems, even when we're talking about home, even when we're talking about Africa. And one aspect is that progress comes from leveraging strengths, not weaknesses. When we are engaging our young people, I work with all 5 million of young people across the entire African continent. I know their problems. The problems are not different from the problems we went through, but they're more complex because they're living in a society today where they have the tools, where they misuse those tools to abuse others rather than to search for information. We know that Twitter, LinkedIn, all those sort of stuff. But the point is this, we should engage them and also make them understand that weakness is not a strength. You can only compete from your position of strength. And complaining all the time and blaming people and thinking that they are the problems of why you are not where you are today, that doesn't work and will not help anybody. The last that sometimes we, even professionals, so-called professionals, we call ourselves professional, but the real professionals are our mothers in the villages. They saw the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they brought us up where we are today. They struggled, but they put food on our table. But today we behave as if life is a celebration, right? That when we are where we are, then we need to talk that the people back home are suffering in terms of not having food. Yes, but what are we doing to solve it? Let's talk about solutions. Any problem we talk, we should match it with a solution, and we should not stop there. We should then become the solution provider ourselves so that others can follow. Leadership is not about position. Leadership is about taking personal responsibility.
Thank you.
Lastly,
Thank you. All right. Give your last point. Give your last point, Richard. Come on, go on.
no, I think we should actually and start making people see themselves as solution providers, regardless of which part or which level of education they have. It doesn't really matter. It's about solutions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Powerful, powerful conclusion. And now to Dr. Temfak.
Okay, I wish to thank you, Vinicius, Richard, and Elvis Senior for accepting to participate in this webinar. And this wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have all the people attending here. They've made it quite interesting. There are so many comments here that if I need to respond to, maybe this webinar will continue to tomorrow, because this is one of the topics that I love so much. I love psychology. I love to think, to understand the way people think and the way they feel. What I just want to say here is that somebody mentioned life, like somebody said, we need to have a purpose in life. That comes back to what I mentioned by saying you have to define the target. And once the target is defined, you automatically get to it. And the main thing is not getting to it. The main thing is remaining consistent. And leadership is all about making people do what they never thought they could do. I borrowed that from Steve Jobs. But being a boss is making people do what you want them to do. So one of our responsibilities as those who have this enlightenment in quotes, or who are working towards this enlightenment to understand how to be able to solve problems by providing solution. One of the responsibilities that we have is to bring people to believe, just like Obama did, that we can. And it's on that note that I would end the evening. And I'm quite happy to share my list of books that I read with anybody who is interested. Thank you very much and have a nice evening and a weekend.
Thank you very much. I want to say thank you to the panelists for this wonderful discussion. This is one of the number of discussions we'll be having. And like our panelists have said, we decided to create this group because we think it is time that Cameroonians start giving back to the communities. I think we complain a lot about things not being done well. So, but the question is, what have we done to contribute? And this is, to us, a little contribution that we need to start doing. So we would also have a series of webinars. We'll have a webinar on how to write a CV to get an international job, how to write a motivational letter to get an international job with the UN, the IMF, and the World Bank, how to do interviews for these organizations. We'll do webinars on how to switch from the private sector for those who are interested in switching their careers from the private sector into the international NGO. We'll guide people who want to move back from the diaspora back to Cameroon on how they can get back and integrate into communities. We'll also do a webinar on how to network both online and offline. There are a lot of things that goes wrong when the youth want to contact us for information. They have the entitlement attitude. We think maybe if we train the youth and others on how to network with people if you never met, we'll also be organizing, just for your information, we will be organizing once in a year in Cameroon a mentorship session for those who are interested. So we are really thinking big about this group, and we really want to create impact that will be felt. And to conclude, our jobs do not define us. I work for the United Nations, but it doesn't define who I am. I will be defined by the impact that I create, because I will never be here forever. I think it has been a fantastic session, and I hope you guys enjoyed yourself. We are available on Facebook, on LinkedIn. You guys can contact us individually. You can send us your WhatsApp numbers. We'll add you in the group. And then for those who can download Slack, as we've discussed, download Slack and join Slack using the link we've sent. Once more, thank you guys for being a fantastic crowd. Thank you very much. Over. Mambo, you can close the meeting now for everyone, because you're